Hi, my friends. Welcome to this solo episode of the Astro Bloom podcast. My name is Vanya Banks, and I am a spiritual astrologer and healing guide. So, I was really toying with the idea of covering two sort of very related topics for this year in this podcast, and I think it's just going to be way too much to cover. So, I'm going to be splitting this up into two very potent energies for this year that are closely related. But basically, it's just giving you a heads up, it's going to be a two series. So I'll release the next one in a week or two, and basically you'll be able to really get the full picture of some of the really, really potent transformational energy that's happening. So in this episode, I'm really going to focus on the shifts that are taking place collectively and personally with Pluto moving into Aquarius. So Pluto has been in the sign of Capricorn since 2008. So this is a very big collective shift. And it's moving, or it already has moved into the sign of Aquarius on March 23rd and staying there until June 11th this year. It will then retrograde back into Capricorn and then move into Aquarius in January of 2024 for the next 20 years. So this is a really big collective shift. Pluto. Pluto is often a very feared planet in astrology because of just the archetype of Pluto, right? It's so distant from us. It's the most distant planet. There's been all this mystery around, is Pluto even a planet? Is it not a planet? Whatever. There's just a lot of unknowns, right? So that in and of itself tells us that Pluto is this very kind of like unknown energy to us. It's very distant from our human consciousness. And if we look at the archetype of Pluto, Pluto is Hades. It's the god of the underworld. In Greek mythology and in Roman mythology, Pluto, that's where the name comes from. But the god of the underworld is often sort of a feared archetype through mythology because, he devours these human souls, brings them into the underworld. And obviously, that's a scary thing to think about for mortal beings. However, Pluto is actually how I believe Pluto should be portrayed is, there's no life without death. And really, as human beings, we have to accept that, right? We have to accept that certain things end in our lives, and that just clears space for new things to begin. So with Pluto representing the underworld, it really represents this like collective subconscious energy. It really represents that subconscious hidden part of ourselves that then makes up the entire collective. So it is the underworld, it is the shadow realm, if you want to call it that. And basically, from like the Greeks actually used to believe that Pluto was also, or Hades was actually the provider of wealth, because all of the mineral riches and like all of the agricultural like crops and abundance came from the earth. And so by keeping Hades, by keeping Pluto, happy, or keeping him satisfied in some way and providing sacrifices to the earth and to the underworld, he was essentially able to sort of transform that into new life, into riches, into wealth. And so that's really what comes to mind for me with Pluto energy, is this like archetype of alchemization. If we think about even like the representation of the highest kind of level of Scorpio energy being the Phoenix, and Scorpio being ruled by Pluto in modern astrology, the Phoenix bursts to ashes, right? And then from the ashes, the new life, the new Phoenix is born. And so that's really what Pluto represents at the end of it all. That's not to say that, everything about Pluto is peachy and light. like everything in astrology, there is a light and there is a shadow. And in order to get to the light expression of any planet or archetype or sign, we need to go through the shadow. And so in the shadow expression of Pluto, he really outlines power struggles, the things we have kept suppressed and hidden and put into our shadow because we're afraid of how others will perceive us for showing that, or we're afraid of the power struggles that will ensue. Pluto there's a lot of fear there. And at the same time, Pluto is in our charts shows us where we need to like reclaim our power and where we need to face our fears. And so that's what is all kind of changing as we shift with this collective shift. So speaking of, Pluto in Capricorn, he did this alchemization, he did this unearthing in all of the things that Capricorn represents. Capricorn represents our societal structures, our systems, the hierarchical distribution of power within our systems, corporations, all of the government, like authority figures. And so what Pluto has did since 2008 and is going to continue to do, over the course of this year, is really integrate that like final alchemization, that final unearthing, and reveal all of the shadow, all of the power imbalances in our systems, all of the potential corruption, and also this is on a collective level, but personally, it's going to really push us to examine and integrate the information and the transformation and the revealing that's taken place in the Capricorn ruled part of your chart. So with Pluto being, in the critical 29th degree of Capricorn for most of 2023, it will head back to, I believe, the 28th degree, but it's in and around that final degree. And so there is this this is called a critical degree in astrology because it is the last degree. Each sign has 30 degrees. It is the last degree of a sign. So it is where all of the integration and all of the learnings from 2008 are going to kind of really peak and integrate and finalize in a way. So with this integration, there's really this push to really tear down those structures, right? To tear down those things that are causing a power imbalance in our lives, to really understand at the soul level ourselves in this part of our chart, and to finally integrate any of the conditioned sort of behaviors, patterns, and things like that we've learned, because Capricorn is also conditioning. It is the past. It is like everything that is sort of old, right? When I think of Capricorn energy, I very much think of, the crone, that like wisdom gained with age, right? That wisdom gained through tradition and ancestry, and all of that is very, very valuable. But as Pluto has moved through Capricorn, it's also exposed where like some of this conditioning, some of these maybe it's societal conditioning, maybe it's familial conditioning, whatever it might be, any of these like old patterns or beliefs that live within that certain area of your chart, you're really being asked to sort of realize them, bring them to your consciousness, bring them to the light, and release whatever is not allowing you to be fully in your power. So I'll give you an example. For me, I go by the Placidus house system. If you know your chart well, you'll know that there's two different systems. There's whole signs and Placidus. Whole signs is when the houses and the signs line up perfectly with one another. So it is a little bit easier to be looking at transits and things like that with whole signs. But I find Placidus is just a bit more precise and gives a whole picture in my experience. So in Placidus, Pluto and Capricorn has very much transited, since 2008, has transited my house of self-worth, my value systems, my, material possessions, the way I make money. It's one of the career houses. And it has transited a little bit of my third house as well, which is like my immediate sort of community, the way that I use my voice, the way that I communicate, the way that I write, the way that I speak, like all of that kind of realm. And what's really happened for me is I've finally realized, that there are a lot of ingrained patterns that I've been working through and deconditioning around my inherent value system. It's been a very long transit. Like when Pluto was in Capricorn, I had just finished high school, and I knew kind of deep down in my soul that I wanted to I didn't really know who I was or what I wanted to do. And I wanted to just kind of travel and explore and find out what it is that I was actually passionate about. Because I always had this big sense of like, I'm here to do something, but I don't know what it is. I'm here to make a difference some way. And I'm here to help people somehow, but I couldn't figure out what that was. However, being brought up in an Eastern European immigrant family, like having immigrated to Canada when I was 10, there was so much conditioning around the ways that are acceptable and secure to make money, right? You have to have a specific kind of career. You had to go to university after high school. There was no gap year. There was nothing like that. It wasn't even up for discussion. And so there was this like element of like authority that was, and power that was taken away from me. Or putting it that way sounds like I'm a victim. I allowed it to be taken away from me, right? That was just part of my path. I had to learn how to reclaim my power in that area of my life. I had to, over the course of 15 years, learn that my value systems are not actually in alignment with the ones that I was brought up to believe in, of, how I should be making money, the things that I should own, like even just questions around my own self-worth and placing self-worth in maybe material possessions. Like that's not really who I am. Yet I was taught to believe that you're only as good as like how much money you make, or the security that you have, right? Capricorn is like that material security as well. So basically, Pluto, it's been a very long journey of deconditioning and like getting to the roots of understanding what is it that I actually value? How do I want to earn money? Like what do material possessions mean to me? What do I want to use them for? Like how do I want to work in the world in some way? And also, how do I express myself? How do I use my words to connect to the people in my community? How do I find the people that get that true value system that I have, right? So there's been a lot of unearthing there. There's been a lot of shadow work, and that's the main thing I want to talk about really with respect to Pluto energy in general, is like Pluto, because he is the underworld, he is shadow work. Like he is the depths of your psyche, the hidden and repressed things that you have kept there that you might not even know are there. As Pluto transits an area of your chart, and depending, what other planets he might touch on natally in your own chart, he's going to expose all of the light and shadow of these placements and of these areas of your life. So because I use the Placidus system, I don't want to give like a specific projection based on your rising sign, but I'll give you like a kind of at the end of this, an overview of, which house this is affecting for you. And you can piece together, like, let's say Pluto in Capricorn is your second and third house, like I mentioned, you can piece together that's going to affect both of those houses, right? And then how that'll affect you when it's in Pluto, or when it's in Aquarius. So yeah, moving on to, Pluto in Aquarius now. So Pluto in Capricorn, like I mentioned, really exposed, how some of these old structures in our lives might be, in like these old stories and these patterns and conditioning are like how they show up in our lives, right? And how they maybe live in our subconscious. Whereas Pluto in Aquarius, so Aquarius is, interestingly enough, Aquarius does share the ruler of Saturn with Capricorn in traditional astrology, but the modern ruler of Aquarius is Uranus, and Uranus was actually discovered during Pluto's last transit through Aquarius in the 1700s. So this was almost like this, really great, I guess, analogy, right, of the fact that even like Pluto was exposing things related to Aquarian themes, to the point that it actually exposed Aquarius's modern ruling planet, Uranus, at that time. And just from a historical perspective, we can always look at like what was happening back then, last time Pluto was in Aquarius, to be able to tell sort of what's coming now. So Pluto in Aquarius was that last transit happened from 1778 to 1798. And during that time, there were a lot of revolutions, a lot of people and communities getting together and having revolutions against governments, against authority figures, fighting for different types of freedom and liberation. There was the French Revolution, there was the American Revolution. I believe there was even the slavery abolition society that was formed in Britain. So there was a lot of like fighting for rights, fighting for equality, fighting for the people, right? Reclaiming power back to the people. And the time prior to that Pluto was in Aquarius was 1532 to 1555. And interestingly enough, one of the things that happened around this time was that Henry VIII, pretty famous king of Britain, was essentially kind of went against the church, took power back from the church, from the Pope, because he wanted to marry Anne Boleyn, and the church was not permitting that at that time. And so basically Henry VIII took that power back and established his own, church that was integrated with the state, and actually took all the money, and tore down a lot of the churches that like Rome had built, and like basically gathered all the wealth and riches from that. So again, wealth from death. And if we think about the church being really like a figure of authority, it's a very powerful organization that holds a lot of power over people, and has for thousands of years. This is again that theme of reclaiming power, redistributing power. Now, Henry was then the one that had all the power in that case, and so it doesn't necessarily mean that this was for good or for bad. It just means a redistribution of power. And all of this really lines up well with the fact that Aquarius is related to the people. Aquarius is the water bearer of this like divine cosmic wisdom, which is really contained in the ether of the cosmos, and it's able to distill that down into like emotional intelligence and wisdom and intuition, in a way to share with humanity for the good of humanity, for the good of everyone. So in that sense, Aquarius really rules like our communities, our wider human community. It rules our relationship to the future as well, because Aquarius is very forward thinking. It's all about innovation, progress, moving forward from those old systems, from the old systems of Capricorn that might not be working anymore. So Aquarius, in a way, because it provides this link between Saturn and Uranus, it really is the planet of deconditioning. It's the planet of discovering your own individuality and unlearning the things that might have been conditioned onto you through your upbringing, through societal sort of standards and expectations. Uranus is that remembrance of like who we came here to be, because it actually quite literally represents our divinity and our humanity, and the two sides of ourselves that actually live within this human body. So by having now unearthed all about these systems that might be taking our power away, the power inequalities within our systems, within how we interact with authority figures, all of that, as we now move into Pluto and Aquarius, it's all about unlearning those old patterns, those old beliefs that keep us disempowered and keep us sort of detached from our true individuality and our true essence, like that essence of what our soul quite literally incarnated into this body for. So this is happening, of course, everything that happens on the personal level happens on the collective level. And so by Pluto unearthing all of these themes in Aquarius, everyone's going through that personally, and then also collectively we're going through that as well. Because Aquarius also rules technology, forward thinking, innovation, all of that, we're going to see a lot of advancements in innovation and technology and how that can be used to really create like an equal, more humanitarian world and a better future for all people. But at the same time, because Pluto unearths all the shadows too, it's going to likely unearth a lot of shadows of like how we might be detaching for the present moment from the present moment, like because Aquarius is the future, it loves to think about the future, it loves to look forward. One of the shadow aspects is actually detaching from the present moment, detaching from the body. And so with Pluto in Aquarius, it's going to unearth the ways through which we might have become very detached from our bodies, detached from the present moment. Things like escaping through virtual reality, using technology in unethical ways. All of that, again, on the collective and physical and personal level, will be revealed so that we can hopefully find the balance and choose the light, choose to use the technology for the betterment of all of us, choose to use technology to allow us to be in the present moment while also planning a more successful, fair, equal future where power is equally distributed within our communities and everyone gets to be their own unique selves and contribute to that collective. Some of the things I really want you to think about though with this transit is it's a very long transit. Like it's going to take a lot of time. This is for the next 20 plus years, right? So it's a slow process. It's a slow process, and we're not going to see the whole picture until 2044 when Pluto is out of Aquarius, right? So just like we're just finally now starting to integrate the final pieces of the Pluto and Capricorn transit. The other thing here to really remember, I'm just going to have some tea. So this is really all, whatever happens in the cosmos is always happening for our highest good. There's a huge element of surrendering, especially when it comes to Pluto, because Pluto can take us really to the depths, like I said, of our shadows, to the depths of those places that are really dark and scary sometimes and unknown. And so there's a big element of releasing the need to control the outcome of the things that might be ending in our lives as we move through these final critical degrees of Capricorn, and as we look forward to Pluto in Aquarius. There's a whole other element that's really playing into this energy, which is the fact that we are entering a new eclipse portal in basically this year. In July, the nodes are moving from Taurus and Scorpio to Aries and Libra. But the eclipse portal actually opens April 20th on a new moon in Aries, with the nodes still being in the old, or in the sort of ending signs of Taurus and Scorpio. And this is energy we've been experiencing over the last, or since the end of 2021. So this energy really is quite integrated with Pluto's shift. And all I'm really going to say at this point with respect to this is that this energy has, so the nodes are these very fated karmic points, and they're actually going to be very influenced throughout this year by Pluto shifting sort of from the critical degree of Capricorn into Aquarius and back. And also changing signs, during the eclipse portal being open, the nodes changing signs, and Pluto changing signs. So there's a very karmic kind of fated energy to this Pluto shift as well. It's going to influence everyone, again, collectively, but also on a very individual level, depending on where these energies are in your chart. And I'll cover this in more depth in the part 2 of this episode. But for now, I just wanted to leave you with a bit of background on how, you might expect, where you might expect this like integration of the lessons and the conditioning to take place as Pluto is leaving Capricorn, and then where you can look to Aquarius, or Pluto and Aquarius affecting your chart as well as we move into that energy. So basically, if this is happening, so if we're looking at whole signs, if you are an Aries rising, or if the energy of Capricorn rules your 10th house, then the next house that will be affected by this is your 11th house. So Aquarius being the 11th and Capricorn being the 10th. So you might be integrating some final lessons around, ways that how you are building your legacy, how you are showing up in the world, and quite specifically, really your career in some ways might be programmed by old conditioning, and really unearthing a lot of potential shadows and repressed aspects of like your beliefs, right, around your career and your legacy. And so there's an element of taking power back in your career life over your legacy, how you show up in the world. And as you move into as Pluto moves into your 11th house in Aquarius, it's going to really ask you to take, these lessons you've learned to create the future that you are envisioning, and to set yourself up within the larger sort of human community. It's going to affect your friendships and connections, and it's going to really ask you to align to your true, value systems, and connect with connect with the communities that really recognize your unique authenticity. So a lot of transformation in your communities. If Capricorn is in your ninth house, and Aquarius is in your 10th house, so likely you're a Taurus rising in whole signs, you're really integrating a lot of lessons you've been learning around, in general, like your larger belief systems, your personal philosophies, the ways through which you might be pursuing like higher learning. And that's what's happening as Pluto is finishing up its finished up its transit and is, going to be retrograding back and forth this year in Capricorn, taking power back over those belief systems, over establishing your personal philosophies, right? Through the wisdom and through experience gained in life, through your experience out in the world, out in your education. And now as Pluto is in your 10th house in Aquarius, and as it's moving into that over the next 20 years, there's going to be an element of really unearthing again what like how you show up in your career, right? How you show up in your legacy, and deconditioning anything that might not be in alignment there with how you are showing up in the world, how you're being of service in some ways. If Capricorn is in your 8th house and Aquarius is in your 9th, you're really taking a lot of lessons learned around potential power struggles, potential ways through which you might have given your power away through like intimate relationships, through also the ways you might have been sort of draining your energy, draining your resources in your intimate connections that is not actually allowing you to be in your own authority and your own power and focused on, building things that really align with your value system. So there's a transformation also of some, mental health there as well, and really learning any patterns that might potentially, prevent you from intimacy, from trust, from vulnerability with other people as well. And you're really, as Pluto in Aquarius is moving into your 9th house, and taking these experiences to, again, decondition your belief system, your personal philosophies in some way. If Capricorn is in your 7th house, that means Aquarius is in your 8th house, and this is going to be really affecting some final lessons around your one-on-one relationships. So integrating, again, integrating the lessons learned from the different sort of patterns that might have shown up in your life around the ways through which you relate to others, and how people might be mirrors of your own, wounding and own like internal landscape. So you've really been learning a lot about reclaiming your power through your one-on-one relationships. And these can be romantic, platonic, business relationships. And understanding this at a very intimate level, and understanding any conditioning that you hold around how partnerships should look like, is now going to allow you to decondition that and take that into stepping deeper into your partnerships, being able to be more intimate, more vulnerable, have more trust. But it'll also expose, the potential ways through which you are, again, maybe draining energy into the wrong relationships, into the wrong sort of bleeding resources, into the wrong partnerships in some way. If Capricorn is in your 6th house and Aquarius is in your 7th, this is really a time of integrating lessons learned around, in a way, how you are of service, and your health, your body, your connection to your daily routines. There's likely been a lot of unearthing around, what have you been taught to believe maybe is like a healthy body? What have you been taught to believe constitutes like a daily routine? And does this actually align with you? And how have you maybe given your power away in some way to to these conditioned beliefs or patterns. This is then going to inform a way of you finding wholeness within, finding that way of finding completion within through your daily rituals, through the little things that you do to make sure that your health is good and that you can be of service in some way. And as Pluto is in Aquarius and moves into Aquarius for good in 2024, it's going to be in your 7th house of partnership. So then this, this new perspective on what it looks like to be whole within oneself is going to allow you to then step into maybe more aligned partnerships. At the same time, you'll still be tested to then look at, how are your partnerships mirrors of potential conditioning that you might have received, and how do you actually reclaim that power and that unique approach that you might have towards relationships and step into the relationships that give you the freedom that you crave. If Capricorn is in your 5th house, Aquarius is in your 6th house, so you're likely a Virgo rising. And basically this is Pluto has really been unearthing and getting you to intimately understand what it is that you are creating in this life. How are you using your life force energy? How are you connecting to your sexual energy as well? And how are you procreating things, whether it is children or creative children, right? So there's an element of like learning those final lessons, integrating the understanding of potential patterns and potential conditioning and potential beliefs, potential systems that you might have given your creative power away to that are not in alignment. And this, again, is now going to inform how you decondition further as Pluto and Aquarius transits your 6th house. And it really begins to reveal to you the true ways through which you can use this life force energy to be of service. And again, there will be a focus on, health, because the 6th house is the house of health and daily routines. And there's going to be a lot of unearthing there around what routines actually serve your freedom, what routines serve your health, and the way through which you're able to actually show up as your unique self. If this energy, if Capricorn energy is in your 4th house, that means Aquarius is in your 5th house. So you've really been going through a lot of understanding conditioned patterns and beliefs and the ways through which you might have been deprived of your power in some way in your upbringing. A lot of work around ancestral conditioning as well, ancestral beliefs, programming. And now it's about integrating those lessons and learning to decondition those beliefs, right? And step into a more aligned form of creating that security for yourself that you do crave as a foundation of your life. And as we move into your 5th house, there's going to be, again, an element of understanding how do you use your creative, like how to use your life force energy, and do the ways that through which you use your life force energy actually give you a sense of freedom and individuality, and also of a service to something greater, right? To a service to humanity. If Scorpio, or if Capricorn is in your 3rd house, you are likely a Scorpio rising in whole signs. Depends. In Placidus, it could be different. And basically that means Aquarius is in your 4th house. And so there's a lot of the last 15 years or so, you've really been learning a lot about the ways through which you communicate, the ways through which you connect to your local community. And there's been a big transformation probably of your kind of immediate surroundings in that sense. So As these lessons integrate, as you reclaim your power over being the creator of your own communities, of being the creator of like how you express yourself through writing or speaking or whatnot, there's a final integration happening there, and this is then going to really inform the Pluto and Aquarius transit that's going to happen in your 4th house, which again, there will be a lot of focus on like ancestral conditioning. There might be a lot of focus on like reclaiming your power over any childhood programming. Also, just doing a lot of like inner child healing, a lot of work to create that security within, to allow your inner child to be free, to express their individuality, and to have to be of service in some way to the collective. It's going to illuminate, power struggles in your home life, in your family, and things like that, and aim to create a more fair and balanced power balance in that area of your life. If Capricorn is in your 2nd house, you're likely Sagittarius rising, and that means that Aquarius is in your 3rd house. So this is what I was speaking to, with my with how this has affected me in a lot of ways. Is there actually is a really big integration happening around, your value systems, how you make money, understanding like a lot of the conditioning that you've received around how you should be making money, what your vocation should be in a lot of ways, and how you place your self-worth in material things. So this is now really going to inform how you show up in your community. There's a rebirth that's going to happen with respect to how do you show up within your immediate community. How do you use your throat chakra to express your authenticity, and how do you do that in a way that serves that community, to create equal systems of power, and allows people in your community to express their authenticity, essentially. If Capricorn energy is in your 1st house and Aquarius is in your 2nd, you've really been going through a huge rebirth and transformation of your life view, probably your appearance in some ways, the way through which you show up in the world, your identity. You've really been shedding like a snake skin, an onion layer, right? There's been a lot of focus on like self-development in some ways. And now you can use this new identity and this new knowledge to release any conditioning around how you should present yourself in the world. And this will allow you to to move into that transformation of the 2nd house of value systems, how you show up in your work. All of that is going to be affected by Pluto in Aquarius. And finally, or the last 2 signs would be, so if you're an Aquarius rising, in whole signs, this is affecting, you're really moving from the 12th house of Capricorn energy to the 1st house. So the last 15 years, you've really been understanding, you've been faced to bring to consciousness your inherent conditioned patterns, a lot of what lives in your subconscious realm, a lot of how you connect to source, your spirituality, and maybe even explored past lives and things like that. So there's been really a transformation of how you connect to source, how you believe you are connected to everything around you. and an element of like maybe taking your power back in a lot of ways from systems, like belief systems or like spiritual systems that you don't necessarily align with anymore. So as you move from Pluto in the 12th house to Pluto in the first house with Pluto in Aquarius, this is really going to inform how you show up in the world, and have a direct impact, of course, on the types of people that you connect with. But yeah, it's essentially going to really allow you to step into a more authentic expression of self. And again, kind of really shed an onion layer here, shed a snake skin. Finally, Pisces. So if you're Pisces rising, you likely have Capricorn in the 11th house and Aquarius in the 12th house. So this energy has, Capricorn, Pluto and Capricorn has really been transforming your communities, your friendships, the ways through which you also build the future that you envision, and maybe understanding how certain patterns that you have, or different conditioned beliefs that you have, you might have given your power away to them, and not necessarily been able to create the future that you envision and establish the connections that you desire and connect with your wider community in the way that you would like to. So this final integration is really allowing you to take that power back, to find more alignment in the future that you are moving towards, to find more alignment in your communities. And then this is really going to also allow you then to, so as Pluto moves into your 12th house, there's going to be a focus on really understanding what it is, like what kind of spiritual belief system, how you are connected to everything, like something much greater than yourself. It's going to transform the ways through which you connect to the divine in some way, and involve a lot of, again, work to explore some very deeply rooted subconscious patterns that might even stem from past lives, and perhaps reclaiming your power from even just those past life memories by bringing them to consciousness and bringing them to light, and exploring, how you can find that freedom and find that liberation through this process. So that was just a really brief synopsis of sort of what has passed, what is integrating, and what is coming, depending on where this energy is in your chart. And you can always pull up your chart on astro.com. It's a free website, and you can look on there to see where this energy is affecting you. If you have any questions, please feel free to comment below, reach out, message me on Instagram, let me know. And I wanted to just say that we'll be working with this energy very intimately at the upcoming Revive and Empower Day Retreat on April 15th. This is happening, this is an in-person retreat that's happening just about an hour north of Guelph, Ontario, where I live. And I'm doing this in collaboration with my friend and shamanic healer, Jess Short from Willow Ray Healing. We will be doing a shamanic journey to really tap into this energy of Pluto this year that is like so monumental and so evolutionary. So we'll really be playing in the underworld through this journey, learning to, bringing to consciousness some of these patterns and maybe conditioning and beliefs that could be taking our power away from us in some way, that we might be giving our power away to. And the whole idea of the retreat really is to revive our heart's desires, and work with Pluto to understand what might be blocking us from stepping into like this heart-centered path. And then we're going to move through a very potent Mars and fire ritual to get you empowered, to get you to release this conditioning, to help you align to that future self. So if you want to learn more about it, it's in the show notes. And again, feel free to reach out if you have any questions. Space is quite limited as it's a very intimate gathering, and it's a full day with catered food and all of that, yoga, meditation, shamanic journey, astrology, lots of good things. So would love to have you there. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you in part 2, where we're going to dive further into the nodes and how this energy is really entwined with Pluto and how it'll affect you.